What you're seeing right now is probably the best Zelda clone I've ever seen. It's a game called 3D Game Heroes, which is only on PlayStation 3. This is a must-have game, and I picked it up the moment it came out. It's just the Zelda game you'd want to be on PS3. It has From Software listed, but they're not the true developer of the game. But today we're going to go over a few Zelda-like games, and I'm going to go into a few of them to show you what they're like. I'm going to switch over to the mini NES. We're going to start with TurboGrafx 16 Nutopia, which is also very, very close to a Zelda clone. Everything's set up like so. I used to work at a video game exchange years ago, and I did not even have any true knowledge of TurboGrafx 16 until one day somebody brought a system in with a bunch of Who card games to trade in. And we didn't take TurboGrafx 16 in at the time because they just weren't worth anything at the time. But for the most part, I never got the system because it was overpriced, and I ended up getting a Genesis instead. So I was thoroughly surprised when I found out there were games like this on the system. And this is just a absolutely fantastic game, and it's a must-play for anybody that loves Zelda games. I love how they say medallions, but basically Triforce all over again. I did do a little test run on this game, and there's a little glitch with the control, but you can get around it. And I'm using a PCE Fast. Sometimes you'll get stuck up here on the character, and if you hold L2 or R2, you can kind of see what I'm saying? You can shake right off the character. You can get stuck. But holding L2 will unlock you from being stuck. But straight into the overworld. Got the sword. Didn't even have to go into a cave to get the sword. Got my slimes. There's also a Nutopia 2, and it's even closer to a Super Nintendo game. That's pretty impressive for this system. I'll briefly show you Nutopia 2. It actually starts out right on the boss battle. So you can't go wrong playing this game. I'm going to show you Nutopia 2 for a few seconds, then we're going to move on to a few other cool games. And of course, like I said, Nutopia 2 is on the same system. Right on the boss battle. This reminds me quite a bit of a Zelda 3 Link to the Past style game. And of course, it's one of those intentional deaths in games. I've played games in the past where I tried to fool around by putting on, like a Game Shark cheat with Endless Life. I did it in a Metroid game one time. And I kept fighting the boss for about 10 minutes, then I realized, okay, I'm supposed to die. So, I don't always use codes, but once in a while I'll goof around on the game. Okay, another game I'm going to show you is a underground, kind of obscure title that was on PlayStation 1 called Alundra. This is also a lot like Zelda. We get those classic long load screens. Nothing's changed. You see a lot of these companies that have developed these RPGs are still around making fantastic RPGs today. This is Working Designs, and they make quite a few good games. There's also a sequel to this called Alundra 2, which is a great game as well. But for action RPG games, Zelda style, this definitely fits the bill. You can also play games on Super Nintendo, which I did not put on here today, but there's a game called Soul Blazer. You got Terra Enigma, which is released in Europe. And you got countless games to play. But you start out with your sword. You have an overworld, just like Zelda. You do all the missions, side missions. It's just another game that's worth playing. We're going to jump around. And speaking of Zelda, we have Willow, which was on Nintendo, which was developed by Capcom. And eventually, when Nintendo wanted to make a Zelda game, they had their development companies busy doing other games, so they enlisted the aid of Capcom to make, I believe they made Minish Cap. So, Capcom had a good history of making RPG games, and Zelda was one of their forerunners for that. Right here, where you see the Super Mario Brothers, I was testing to see if I could get a GIF, an animated thing working on here, but not working. That would have been sweet if it worked, though. But we have Willow on Nintendo. This is one of those games where you always have to start out in the town, talk to everybody, then get your weapon, your armor, etc. But once you get into the overworld, it's also one of those games where you can literally sit there and have endless enemies coming at you in waves, and I literally just taped the turbo button down and left the game play by itself for a few hours to level up. And it's also like Kid Icarus, where you have a dungeon that's similar to you being turned into an eggplant and having to go back to the hospital. You have a witch curse you and turn you into a pig, and in both games it's obnoxiously annoying and just a bitch to try to revert back to your human form. But Willow's a great game to play if you want yet another Zelda style game. I'm not going to sit here right now and spend like 5 minutes talking to everybody. I'm just giving you a little quick display of the game in action. Speaking of Willow, one of my absolute favorite arcade games that has ever been made is Willow, and it's also made by Capcom for the arcade. I'm going to show you that for a minute. And this is definitely one game I would have loved to see come home to Super Nintendo. I mean, it has everything that a Capcom game represents. Great music, gameplay, graphics. And like Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, it's one of my top 10 arcade games. Can't go wrong with this one. Kind of has a little bit of a Super Ghouls and Ghost feel to it. But I love how it has like Strider style music and just that epic feel to all the music, like you'd see in Forgotten Worlds and Strider, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, etc. You could get gold and unlock power-ups and items and such. I've always liked games that have slight RPG elements. And there you go. See if I can focus here and make it a little bit farther without dying. There's the man you can buy stuff from. And quite a few Capcom games have this type of screen. You could get a screen like this in Forgotten Worlds. Then there's other games that are not made by Capcom. You have Fantasy Zone that has a shop like this. Then you have Lords of Thunder on TurboGrafx CD and Sega CD that also have a store like this. But like I said, this is a great game, and the boss at the end of this first level is quite a bit like the cool as hell boss at the beginning of the first level of Super Ghouls and Ghosts on Super Nintendo. So this is definitely a must-play game. I'll see if we have anything else here to show you. We have Beyond Oasis on Genesis. I'm not going to get into that today. That's similar to Zelda. More of like a Sinbad pirate style theme. Then we have Crusader of Centy, also on Genesis Mega Drive, which is like Zelda. So those are both pretty cool to get into. And you're familiar with the arcade game Golden Axe, which is a side-scroller. But you may not be aware that they made a Zelda clone on Sega Master System called Golden Axe Warrior. And I'm going to show you two more specific games today that are Zelda clones that are really cool to try too. They're not on the Mini Nintendo. One's on PS3 and one's on PS4. Also on Android and mobile phone. See, you got another Zelda game. So this is quite a fun one to play too. Now I'm going to get into the other games I was going to show you. One's going to be 3D Game Heroes on PS3, and you can pick it up for about $9 to $20. This is a great game. And don't judge me on having a pink controller. I got it at a good price. The moment I found out about this game several years ago, I just had to pick it up on day one, and I've never regretted it since. I love recommending it to people. And everybody I've recommended it to has loved the game. It's got good music, good gameplay. The dungeons are just like Zelda. I mean, it takes so long for Zelda games to come out that you kind of have to find other games to kind of fill in the void once in a while. And this game definitely fills in the void. Especially if you finish the latest Switch Zelda game. And look how big the damn sword is. It's kind of like a parody of Zelda in general. And I got this game pretty close to the same time that I got the original Demon Souls game. There's inside Easter eggs, you know, related to Demon Souls as well. But I love the look and play of this game. And of course, if you get hit, your sword will shrink in size, just like you lose your ability to shoot projectiles in Zelda. And like any Zelda game, you get power-ups after you beat the dungeons that'll help you get to new areas. You might have rocks that you can't get past at the beginning, but you can later on pass them. You get your little forest mazes, and just like the graveyard maze. Like I said, this is a great game to play if you do have a PlayStation 3. It's 3D Game Heroes. I know they have the PlayStation Now on PS4 where you can play previous PlayStation 3 games, etc. I'm not entirely sure if this is available on there, but if it is and you have a PS4, this is good to play for a day or two if you want to beat it. Takes maybe 6 to 8 hours to beat it if you've never played it before. But I'm going to show you one more game on PlayStation 4 before I shut this video down. This is a game that has previously been on Android, and they finally ported it to PS4. I picked it up at a good price. It's called Oceanhorn, and they pretty much replicate the Wind Waker Zelda experience and just throw some Zelda elements into it. So we'll get that one running for a minute. Just gotta turn my PS4 controller on, and I have the Destiny controller for that. And one thing I do like about this, you actually do have a library where everything's in alphabetical order. I just couldn't stand it on PS3 where you couldn't have the alphabetical order. I mean, I had over 1,000 downloads on there, so I always had to just go through them to by most recent or search for them or just literally re-download them just so I could get to them. I mean, I had pretty much a lot that I got for free, ones that I got it discounted. I put like a 500 gig drive in there, then a 1 terabyte drive, and it's just loaded up with games to the wazoo, and it's a bitch to get to the game you want to play. But on here, everything's alphabetical and real easy to find. Plus, you may have noticed that the PlayStation Store has not been very reliable on PS3. It's real laggy, slow, but on PS4, there's no problem. So here's Oceanhorn. I've not even played this game yet. It's just one of those ones I happen to pick up. I even downloaded it on sale on my Android phone. I bought it on here on sale, and it just went into my back catalog. So I have not officially played this yet. I'm normally not a fan of Android games that get ported over to like a PlayStation 4, PS3, but I've heard really good things about this game. And it seems to have a pretty great soundtrack from the get-go.
I'm leaving tonight and I'm not coming back, kid. My fate is...
I'm pretty sure my $8 purchase was warranted on this game.
I hear it's...
This might actually keep me away from the Mini for a few hours.
It is coming for me again. This is all happening soon. Whatever happens next, I'm not going to lose you like I lost your mother. This necklace is the last thing left of her. Keep it close.
The dialogue's not as realistic as, say, Uncharted, but it's not too bad.
It will guide your way to an island.
Uncharted and Last of Us, they probably have the best dialogue I've seen. Resident Evil 1 probably has the worst dialogue I've seen.
This is the only way.
Even in the remake of Resident Evil, it's just absolutely silly, the dialogue. I mean, who did they get to do the acting for them games? It's just absurd.
Wake up. The time has come.
You just check, you could even check just on your phone or on a PC. You don't always have to turn the system on to see what's on sale, but I typically check my PlayStation system, the store every Friday because they tend to have flash sales, and games like Oceanhorn show up in the flash sales, I'd say, at least every couple months. I think even new, without being on sale, it's still at a good price, though. So it definitely upscaled pretty good for, you know, considering it went from a mobile version to this. Not bad at all. So I could definitely see myself playing this a bit. Anyways, thanks for watching the video, and I really appreciate you guys who have been subscribing to me and watching my videos. It's awesome. I'll post more videos in the very near future. Hope you enjoyed this video.